Weidman made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Tater seconded. You heard the motion on the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, no. Motion carried. Gary, you're up, but I just want to make a comment here. It certainly has worked out well for me to get your advance summary of what you've accomplished by way of repair and maintenance since the last meeting. And I hope that everybody had a chance to look that over in advance. I sent it by email to committee members, maybe not to staff. I would note that that on the visitor center, I think the city is actually obligated to do those things that you did. I'm glad you did it. Thank you. If you need to fill us back for a little time and materials there, that's what the agreement calls for. You're to maintain the actual building, but the rail vehicles, and I know you've repaired the door there probably, the rail vehicles, the displays as such are city-only responsibility. And I'll come back to that topic later in the meeting. Any questions about that? Does anybody have questions for Gary about this list, items on it, or other maintenance items? Yes, sir.
Are they done with the mold issue over at the library as well as at the Dahlstrom trucking?
Library, they finished up yesterday afternoon, and then Dahlstrom, they're finished, but the air scrubbers are in there yet, and the HEPA filters and all that, so that should be taken out tomorrow around noon. The guy come in and tested it today. Yep, it looks like there's about 20 ceiling tile out. They scrubbed the HEPA wipe, or the HEPA vacked it all. They wiped it, and the HEPA vacked it again, the whole inside. There's about 20 ceiling tile that are gone. They did the whole upstairs. You know how thick that dust was or whatever from flat water. And that, they cleaned all that out. They took in the ductwork, they took all the insulation out of the ductwork. And that, they put the filters in. Should be good to go. Once they're out of there, I'm gonna put the ceiling tile in.
Question on the ceiling tile, is it like this
2x2, yep.
You already have it. Otherwise, we've got a bunch of the old elementary that's gonna probably get ripped down anyway, but we could.
Yeah, we'll take it if you.
Yeah, I'd say it's a few bucks.
Okay.
We can coordinate on that. Yeah, so.
Okay.
Thanks.
On item C2, Gary, I know you've been extremely busy and will be busy with the fair and so on. So I'm assuming you haven't been able to make much progress on the snow and ice cards?
We've done a little bit. I ordered actually some material for the snow cards. We put some up on gates already. I think we'll be able to get it done.
Okay, I asked Marty here to give you a little information along with the group that he just provided to me today, as long as we're on that subject matter.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
Over at the library, we had problems at the B&B. We had problems with ice and snow built up on our gas meter and stuff like that. So I ordered, and probably about 4 of them. In fact, one of them was big enough that we used it as an awning over the front door where you walked in. They're about $60 a piece. They're about 7 feet across, and they stick out about 40 inches or so from the building. They don't look like somebody took a couple 2x4s and nailed some plywood on it and put some whatever over the top of it. They're actually quite attractive, and if you want, I don't know what you're putting up there. They go up fairly easy. I think there's like about 4 to 6 anchors. You just drill them in. It's
probably a little bit more expensive up front, but you probably save it in labor.
We had those at the B&B for probably 6, 8 years, I would guess. And they still look just as good. And the nice thing is, it keeps the rain as well as the snow and ice and everything else off of those awnings. So if you want, I can show them later.
Yep.
Decide what you want to do. Except they're about $60 a piece. I don't know how many of them you need, but
quite a few. I'm willing to do whatever. I just noticed like on the Fritz building there, how they got the canopies there with the chains.
yeah.
Definitely whatever you put up, you gotta fasten it to the stud wall, otherwise obviously all that stuff coming down, just gonna rip it back down.
And some of them may be, if you've got a lot of ice issue, heavy stuff, you may have to do something a little different, but it'll definitely keep the snow and the ice off the meters, so.
But yeah, I think I can get that all taken care of before winter.
Okay, great. At item 3, C3, we've had a little bit of difficulty in finding rain handlers, but are continuing that effort. So moving to item 4, this has been on the agenda on and off for quite some time. We have a proposal from Apex Engineering to design vehicle exhaust systems for the Enterprise Center and the Gates Avenue plant. I talked to them, the base price on that was about $5,000, about substituting the Fritz Avenue plant for the Gates Avenue plant, because unless somebody knows better, I don't believe that there's vehicle exhaust in the Dahlstrom trucking space. And as long as it appears that's intended to be a somewhat long-term use, it may be a good idea to design that pursuant to that proposal. And they also wanted to add there that you'll remember it was a fairly complicated proposal. The base cost was $5,000, but if this 1,000 more, if that 500 more, I think we can probably figure it's going to end up costing about double that, or about 5,000 per location. But as has been mentioned previously, we're operating in violation of exhausting requirements under state building codes, and that isn't a problem until it's a problem. When it gets to be a problem is when something goes wrong and there's litigation involved. If we knew of a problem for a long, long time and didn't deal with it, we're subject to a much greater liability than if we were making efforts to deal with it. And because we have income at these locations, maybe not as much as we'd like, but income nevertheless, I'd like to ask that somebody consider making a motion to proceed with design work for vehicle exhausting at both the Enterprise Center and for the current time for the Fritz Avenue plant.
Motion, I'll make a motion.
Okay, I've got a motion from Mike. Would anybody care to second that motion?
Where's this money coming from?
It would have to come from rent from the 2 facilities, Tony.
I'll second that.
Okay, and Tony has seconded. Does anyone need clarification of the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, no. Motion carried, thank you.
How would you like that wording one more time, Mr. Chair?
To proceed with designing vehicle exhaust systems for both the Enterprise Center and the Fritz Avenue manufacturing plant. I left that one out purposely for the time being, but I'm gonna bring it up in another formal.
Or enterprise?
But Fritz wasn't on the agenda.
That's why I had Gates on there.
Okay.
Yeah, because when I was reading.
Okay, we'll call that a faulty motion. It's not gonna work. Mike, would you care to make a motion to do Gates Avenue and the Enterprise Center?
Sure, I'll change the motion.
Will you make your, amend your motion, Tony? Okay.
I think it's important, as you said, once you identify a problem, either try to get going on fixing it, or at least study it, make sure that you know how you're gonna fix it.
Correct. All those in favor of the amended motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, no. I'll put the Fritz Avenue plant on the next agenda. With that, we'll go back to item 3A, the animal shelter.
If I could, are you gonna lead, Gary?
Could I just, talk some points here?
Sure.
Animal shelter, I met with, Monarch, yesterday afternoon for the paving. They're gonna give me a quote for it. I talked to Scott Jones again, I guess, last couple days. He's gonna give me an updated quote on that. So I would think I'd have one definitely for next meeting. The library, on them quotes or whatever, I guess in my opinion, I probably feel that probably at least the boiler probably should be, put in the basement at least to get us through the year, and then maybe we can budget, the city and the county can budget for the rest of that stuff in the future.
And I asked you specifically to get together with Marty on that, and, are you in concurrence?
Yeah, I think that you've got 2 boilers in there, one of them shut down for a reason, and I'm not sure what it is. But I would suggest replacing the one that's shut down, the other one still seems to be working. And then the upstairs, you've got the forced air furnaces. You've got one that's working in one side, 2 that are working in the other. I think they're all the same brand and probably so much same size. If the one single unit on the other side goes out, you can still probably steal some stuff off the parts, or from parts off the other units if there's a problem. And I'm just kind of concurring with what Gary's saying. I think this is a big enough project, it needs to be budgeted in the city and the county. Until then, make sure that they can get through the winter and the summer and get it in next year.
Do you happen to have a ballpark figure in mind of the range we might be looking at for the things that probably need to be done now to make sure we're ready for winter? Just a ballpark, or is that too much?
Yeah, it might be a little bit, but I'm thinking replacing the boiler and whatever, it's gonna be between 10 and 15,000 probably. The other thing is, somebody was asking about the air handler. That's really just a metal box with a blower in it, and it's got a motor and then a fan on the inside. If that thing has a problem, it's a fairly easy fix. More than likely, it's a matter of just replacing the blower of the motor. So I wouldn't do anything with that for now until you get it as a part of a package.
Gary, did you have a chance to take a look at, the scopes? We looked at bids last month, or last meeting. Did you have a chance to look at them, compare them, apples and oranges, or whatever? You know what I mean? We should probably get on that too, because those guys got a schedule of work again.
Yeah, it all depends on, I guess, how we proceed with it too, because, there was kinda, them 3 bids were kinda all over the place, kind of, just different,
Were you able to determine why there was such a difference?
I don't know.
Almost double.
The real difference wasn't in all 3 of them. You had one way up on the top end, Chippewa.
Okay.
And then you had the
That's
other
what I
2.
wondered.
The other 2 were fairly, there were 70 and 90 or something like that. And I would say that part of it is, one bid had replacing the air handler, and I don't think the other one did. And I seriously don't think it needs a replacement. I think that it's been in there, I mean, it's been there for a long time. But I think if and when it goes bad, I'm worried about it then. It's not gonna be a major.
Do you recall how much of the cost that was, of the total bid?
Part.
The
Air
air
handler?
handler.
I don't remember what it was. It could be,
yeah, it was.
I think it's in the minutes.
See, we're not gonna know if we were to replace one boiler, how is that going to come out of the bid? Are the bids gonna be okay in the spring, or, so.
That's kinda why I was asking, that if we were looking at a top end of 90, you could say we don't need 10 of that, now we're down to 80. If we're gonna approve 15 instantly, now we're down to 65. Then we know what we need to budget. Top end, hoping that it comes in cheaper.
That's probably 67,000.
I'd say about 70,000. I was just using rough numbers. You got a 70 and a 90, give or take. So, that's all, you're asking for round numbers. I'm giving you round numbers because the next time you put it out for bid, 2 things need to happen. Number 1, the city and the county both need to make sure they've got the budgeted money, because it's not fair to go ask 3 or 4 contractors or whatever to bid on a job, and then once they've got their numbers out there in front of the public, then say, oh, we don't have any money, sorry, maybe we can modify something. That's just not the way to do it.
It's not good business.
No, that's not good.
The point would be, make sure you've got the money in the budget, or you've got a commitment to the money in the budget, and if it's $100,000 that you're committing, then perfectly fine. Then go for your bids and whatever, but in the meantime, you gotta make sure that you can get through the winter, and you gotta make sure with the heat right now, you gotta make sure you can get through the summer.
Okay, so we'll, maybe over the next couple of weeks or more, we can start to tune up that budgetary proposal to go to both governing bodies. And in the meantime, it sounds like to be safe going through the winter rather than ending up with an emergency or a major issue, that we probably ought to approve replacement of the one boiler at the very least, which we're looking at potentially high-end $15,000.
I would say 15 to 20 probably.
What's that?
I'd say 15 to 20 probably.
Well, I'm just saying, 15 would cover the one problem.
And, you know, that part could move forward yet in 2023, because when we did our 2023 budgets, there was $80-some thousand left of the bond money that we had budgeted, or that we had borrowed for the animal shelter of that $250,000, so that I put that into expenditures for 2023. I also, you know, budgeted for 2024 for the remainder, so that is.
That being the case, would someone make a motion to approve that expenditure from the source that Jamie outlined to get after that here before winter sets in, which is hard to imagine today is coming very fast. It's only around the corner, October, we can get last one.
And it's just for the boiler.
Yeah.
Just one boiler.
Do we know if we'll be seeing an invoice for that remaining balance on Leckleitner this year yet? Because we haven't received an invoice since.
I believe so, and we'll get to that momentarily, but I see that they've got scaffolding on site, so I think that means they'll be added in August, like they said.
Okay, because there was about 80,000 that was in that capital projects line for 2023, and I was assuming that we would have the rest of that Leckleitner, so that's like 38,000, so.
Who would you like me to have do that one boiler?
Did anybody, people separated out with somebody who's obviously a little lower?
Doug's got, he's got it broken down to two boilers for $26,750. That was two boilers. Northwest, they just have a lump sum, but Ben did tell me he could break it down for us.
Were those contractors, were their material, were they comparable as far as, capacity and cost?
Yeah, it looks like they're 95%, 96% boilers, 200,000 BTU boilers.
But the costs were kind of all,
Yeah.
we had low, medium, and high.
And then Chippo for two boilers was 41,850. So obviously that'd be for one boiler over 20 grand.
Can we do this? Can we ask them each specifically just as to the one boiler, get those numbers without disclosing, and authorize Gary as part of this motion period, we'll move it to the lowest of the three on that basis? We're getting to the conclusion.
What's bad about that is if you got that total project, and you start piecemealing it with a new, but the trouble is, then all of a sudden, if you got two vendors or three vendors with their hands in the pie, then you got this complication of, I know after the tornado was the same way, even in my own home. Who did this and who did that, and you know what, where did it overlap, and when something didn't work right, hey, then they were all, well, it wasn't I just took it that far, and the thing is, you in a big project like that, you don't wanna get into that, where in that gray area, or the warranty and all this other stuff, valid. Be like putting one fender on a car where it needs all four fenders, it's all just I think I better bring it up because.
It sounds like the replacing one boiler is somewhat of a standalone project, fairly easy to capsulize, but if we're going out for new bids prior to budget preparation, probably need to identify the project and say the project consists of these 5 points. You're all bidding on all 5 of them. Can we try to achieve that?
I would say, why would we need to do that? I'm just thinking that we've got, and I have a bit of a bias, even though I haven't worked for Doug for probably 3 years, worked with him. He's still $30,000 below the next guy up there. That's 90, and I didn't see what the numbers were. It's
Just as to the one boiler or in
67 to
total.
67. No, I would say the total project is gonna exceed whatever the bid amount is as far as having to get bids. But I think if you're talking, and I'll go back and repeat, I think that 10, top end $15,000 is probably a lot closer than 20 or any of the rest of those numbers.
Should I just reach out to them 3 contractors and just ask them, I imagine they gotta update their pricing anyways, it's been over 2 months. And just see who will come in lower with a price for one boiler, and you give me permission to go ahead and get it done.
I'd like to see us get moving on it again.
Cause I imagine there's probably a lead time on it. We're gonna talk about ADF here pretty soon, and it needs a AC, rooftop AC, and needs one like immediately, and if they order it today, they won't get it until spring.
Is it cumbersome to replace one and then come back later and is there a lot that's gonna be involved?
Boilers?
Yeah.
No, because the piping is all there, it's a matter of basically just valving the one off, replace the boiler, replace the piping, and then turn it back on, fill it all up and turn it back on. You could actually, probably, even if they're tied in, I don't think they're in series, I think they're parallel.
They'll probably have the venting all be done with the first one, so the second one.
Venting should all be there. So I would say it's not a real hard job that we have to drain the whole system down and whatever. You should be able to swap the one out.
It's been a few years now, but I think that second one was actually, its role was as a backup to begin with.
It could be. I know that it'll do the job if you've got one boiler for sure that you can count on all winter long. It'll do the job that needs to be done.
I'll make a motion that we proceed with the one boiler at this point.
Is there a second to Randy's motion?
I'll second.
Tony seconded.
Clarification. Is the motion to contact all 3 contractors and say, this is what we want? Or are we just gonna go with a little bit? Or
What should we do?
That's what I'm asking, so that Gary.
I don't know, I think, myself, I think, intelligence is the cheapest bid is based on 2 boilers. So, for one boiler, I would think it would be percentage-wise, the lowest bid based on his bid for the whole project. He was 30,000 less.
Doug's was the lowest bid?
All the way around.
Yeah, I would think that's probably where we want it.
So you wanna approve it, that as long as he's willing to honor that up to a certain amount of leeway?
Over 15,000, and if it's less,
Yeah, up to
I
15,000.
would say we've got up to 50, just ask
I
for
can
it.
only say Elijah didn't see it. I would be telling the truth.
Probably will do that, yeah.
But in the minutes, we kinda need an amount, like up to.
Although that part
Yeah.
is fine, sure. When you call him, I would just ask him if he wants to check for it.
20,000 would cover.
Well, I think 15.
15 should cover
We
it,
want that.
My guess.
compared to what he bid.
You're all on the same page? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, no. Motion carried.
I mean, did you get the motion?
Cause I'm trying to, so we're up here, but we're coming down here, so.
Up to 15,000, right?
Okay,
That's
so
what-
one boiler, and is it through a what,
From Doug's,
okay,
Well, if it comes out to, 55 or 16.
from Vertigan, what is it?
Doug's plumbing.
Up to 15,000 through
I
the.
wanna say 16.
Put 16 down.
Out of which budget? Out of which budget?
Capital project.
So long as as we're on the library, I don't think there's much more to say there. I'll just repeat that, and I'm sure Christina's aware of this, the scaffolding is sitting out in front of the south face of the library. It's not set up yet though, is it?
No,
But
it's not.
Mr. Leckleitner indicated to me that they'd be starting in August, and that's just around the corner, only a couple of rainstorms away. So hopefully we'll get going on that and have enough dry weather to keep.
There's one thing that we discussed at a library board meeting, and that was those doors on the outside, on the south side.
Mm-hmm.
I think the weather stripping is maybe gone from the bottom. Will they be taking those doors off, do you think?
I'm not aware that they will, but I can ask that.
And so, you know, that weather stripping, I think Christina said you can see outside in there, you can see from critters can crawl in there and so.
Worms keep setting off the security alarm after thunderstorms.
Regardless if they don't do it, we'll take care of it.
It's so bait. It's so bait on the library.
Snake will crawl in there or something.
That would be it.
Anything else on the library?
Is cement all taken care of over there then?
I'm hoping to pour it next week.
Oh, good.
I was planning on doing it this week, but with the hot temperatures and lack of time. Pretty much.
I see some people just cut right through there instead of coming
I don't think about that, Gary.
Oh, yeah.
I was wondering if we
They trip
could
and fall.
talk about that, D1, the ADF. They actually asked me if I could cover that one.
Anything else on the library? If not, Jamie's asked that we advance item D1 because she too has to go to the finance committee meeting to work on the budget.
So, actually emailed you guys the invoice from ADF as well as a copy of their lease. They had, sent us a reduced rent amount, reduced by this invoice. She had contacted them, they made us whole for that invoice. But she said she would bring it to you guys to see if you thought it was, joint management's responsibility to cover that cost, or if it falls on the lessee.
I'm passing around that portion of the lease right now, and I've highlighted what I think is the applicable language
In the lease or the, okay.
in the lease.
Yes.
Bottom of the first page, but continues on to the second.
On the, this one happened. Oh, the lease.
Did I get everybody a lease, or am I still sitting here voting?
Just so we,
Oh, actually, it just kind of. Then I wonder where the hell that is. Okay, it seems to clearly say that the lessee is responsible for interior work, and it specifically says including air conditioning.
and it even says in the, addendum, or the, but the last page of the lease, the appendix, it says, the lessee shall be responsible to perform all necessary normal maintenance of the premises. This includes, but is not limited to, addressing routine maintenance items, changing light bulbs, maintaining fan and overhead doors, changing filters, etc. So we actually and I were under the same understanding, but I wasn't aware of what Gary was saying earlier about the air conditioning. So if there is an issue with the actual AC unit, maybe this is, sometimes things aren't properly diagnosed with the service call, so maybe it is part of a bigger issue that.
I think it's more of a bigger issue because, so I had talked to Josh and Trista out there, actually told me to. That AC unit that rooftop unit is from 1994, and so it's pretty much 30 years old now. And I've had Northwest out there every day this week to fix it, basically. It's limping right now, and everything they do there is temperature controlled, and that's their main one. So if that's not working, they can't make their product, basically. Dan told me this morning from Northwest that he had given a quote to Andy about 6 years ago to replace that. It was like $60,000.
Yeah, it was, I remember
To
that.
replace the whole
The
unit.
rooftop unit up there. And that, it sounds like it's, all the circuit board's been fried multiple times, and, it sounds like everything on it's pretty much shot, they're just limping it along.
Maybe what we should do in that case, if we think it's a much bigger issue, is Mr. Summerfield able to take a look at it and tell us what he believes, the action should be?
As far as whether is this one covered, is this one that is ours, or I don't have a list in front of me as far as like whose buildings, I'm just wondering if it should be our legal counsel or your guys', cause I know like the maintenance of the buildings or the management is supposed to be split, and I didn't know.
I've got some comments on that later in the meeting too, but.
Throw out a good guess. I think this is their bill.
Okay.
I don't think, and only because if you go through what they did, that they charged $150 for, or $300 for, whatever the numbers are. It says they checked the pressures and the electrical, which would be the pressure on the AC plus electric. It was okay. Checked the furnace inside and found the air inside and found the air filter plug. Replaced the filter from customer stock and checked the electrical. Also checked thermostat settings. All is okay. So what it says is that part of the problem, or the main problem, is the air filter was plugged. It hasn't been changed, replaced, whatever. And if you go back to the lessee, shall maintain the interior of the building, including all of these things, heating and air conditioning. Filters are pretty much maintenance. It's not something you should have to call somebody for. I mean, the fact that it was making noise, yes, but the filter should have been replaced, and it sounds like that's what was causing the problem, the noise around it. When the filter plugs, that air's got to get through there somehow, and it'll bang on whatever it can. So I think this one is theirs. Based on number 7 in the contract. As far as the unit goes, that's not their issue. So this one probably should be paid by them.
And they did pay it, they just, we just thought we'd present it, and, sometimes, sometimes the diagnosis isn't really the root of the problem.
Right, if it had been that they checked in there with the Freon, there wasn't enough Freon in there, that the pressures were down, or if they checked the electrical and they found something wrong with the thermostat, or they found something wrong with the capacitor, whatever, then I would say, okay, that's not maintenance, that's a repair. But a filter is maintenance. The other side of it would be they're good tenants.
Question is it working better since they changed that filter and everything?
Yeah. Well, my point would be that they replaced the filter and they said everything is okay after that. So if there's more to it than that, they should have taken care of it.
Right, it's limping through right now. I told them to just kind of keep it running the best you can without spending a lot of money on it. And that, because it needs.
When you say it's limping right now, how do you mean it's limping? Is it maintaining, or is it constant problems? I mean,
it's a constant problem. Northwest's been out there every day this week.
But do they fix something while they're there, or do they just look at it?
Yeah, they've been. Ben's gonna give me a record of actually the whole everything, because before it passed before I was hired. Well, actually, even when I was hired, I was told that Northwest did EDF building. So we haven't done anything on the EDF building at all, because Northwest was always.
there should be, if they've been out there every day this week or whatever, there should be some kind of a record of complaint.
And what they're finding.
Yeah, what they're finding, what they're finding.
What
I
they're
mean,
doing.
what, you called Northwest today, you complaint, such and such this or such and such. And if tomorrow you gotta call for something different, I mean.
It's still the AC unit though.
Right.
That's what they're looking at. And if you can't figure it out, then you say, we can't figure it out, we'll go back tomorrow and see what we can figure out. If they're there and they're fixing something and they haven't solved the problem, then they gotta fix something else.
I'll get all the transaction records or whatever from, Ben was gonna print out full copy of everything that's been done on that unit. And just so you guys have a cost comparison of just what Dan's, every time he's been coming out there, I just told him, I said, minimal, but he's gotta keep it running, you know what I mean? He's gotta keep it limping, basically. Cause, once it goes down.
They gotta have that environment, they gotta have that for their environment. If we had no inside that, it is mandatory to have that thing, otherwise they shut down.
And then they'll start billing us.
You know, it isn't like you put a barn
I'm not
fan.
disputing that either, I mean, just the point is,
Remember Tony when we visited out there.
what are the complaints, are they same
Yeah,
over
yeah.
and over and over, or what?
But I mean, we can't just put a barn fan in the door and say, hey, keep operating, cause that's not gonna happen. They gotta have that
I
environment.
think we need a little better definition than just saying they're living it along.
I'll get more definition, but I mean, he was telling me they replaced, circuit boards, condensing fans, I mean, I'll have to get more information on it. But, I mean, Josh, since 2 weeks ago, Josh and Trista call me now, and I call, I'm gonna call them Northwest, come over because they're familiar with it. And then, but,
Bottom line though, is probably the 30-year-old unit needs to.
bottom line is it just needs to be replaced. I mean, there's 3 rooftop units on there. The heat exchangers, shot on it already. Dan just told me this morning that came in the other day, so they'll be installing that. So that one will be good for a while, and then the other one's 30 years old also, but, they don't get used as much as, the one that's kind of limping along right now, that's the main one in the warehouse floor.
You have currently have one proposal for full replacement.
I guess I haven't got anything yet. Dan just said 6 years ago or whatever, he gave a quote, Andy for like $60,000.
Why don't we figure, just add to your list to get 2 or 3 quotes, minimum of 2, unless you have a requirement for 3.
I think we should. I mean, if you're talking that kind of money, you need to get some bids. 60,000 is over 25, yeah.
Is that a motion, Tony?
Yes, I think that will.
Okay, is there a second to Tony's motion to seek bids for replacement of the major unit?
Second.
Raven seconded. Does anybody need further clarification on that? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, no. Motion carried. I think as to your question on which attorney does it, the one resolution that the city of Ladysmith adopted, which modified an earlier operating agreement for this committee, pretty much said, I was digging for it here but didn't find it, but it's in there somewhere. But it says essentially that hereafter, until there's another change, Rusk County collects the rent on all of its properties. Rusk County manages them, meaning does the repair, the maintenance. I don't know why any legal work on any one of them wouldn't be part of that same management. That's what I'm assuming it is.
Yeah, I don't know that we're under the same assumption on that, but I can.
Well, I don't know why you wouldn't.
Yeah, well, I mean.
If you're taking the money, doing all the work, and at the end of the year telling us here's what's left over, county's doing everything by way of day-to-day management. To me, that includes everything, which includes legal services. If Mr. Summerfield has an issue with that, which he seems to have, probably ask the city to do it.
And I didn't know which, I don't have that list in front of me, I don't know which one it is. Yeah, I don't know, I mean, our initial assumption was that, yes, this would be something that's covered, by the lessee in the lease. But given the information that Gary's communicated, I think we've all had issues where, like, for example, I put in an IT ticket and said I'm having issues with my computer, and they say, oh, restart it, and I restart it, and then, okay, that problem isn't happening at this moment, but then the next day I go in and, I'm having the same issue, so you know, was misdiagnosed, that, you know, yeah, that here in this invoice, they're saying that the problem was the filter. But knowing what we know from what Gary just said, you know, it could have been more substantial. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, speaking differently, you're looking to see if we would eat this, given what we know now.
Right.
To the benefit of the.
And the problem with them, you know, calling Certified directly now and having them come fix stuff is taken care of. They're going through Gary now, and so any service calls that happen out there, Gary is facilitating that.
I think in the grand scheme of things, yeah, that's a reasonable request.
The only thing that I would repeat is that what's in front of us says it was a filter that was plugged.
I agree, but that obviously didn't solve their problem.
It's definitely more than a filter, and I'm sorry I don't have all the information for you on that, but I will get it for you.
And I think they're fine with, you know, if you guys decided you don't want to reimburse them for it. They did end up paying it, and they made their rent whole. They just asked them to bring it here.
And we go back to where they said they'd be good tenants. We might not, set them with for $250. That's
The only other option I was thinking, but I don't think it will work, is one of them, the rooftop units are 35 ton, I think. And I think there is one out at the hospital, but it's a R22, and I don't wanna really, the refrigerant's R22, I don't really wanna rent a train and all that for an R22 unit, because you know, R22 is it's obsolete pretty much.
you can't use it if you're gonna change that system out there, you're gonna change it with
air handler and all that.
You're gonna do the whole thing.
I was trying to brainstorm a little bit.
Is it R22 out there?
Yeah.
Okay, so you could use that unit without having to change, and you can get R22, because we'll get, it's illegal, everybody's got a stockpile. So, if the unit out there is worth trying to trade off, deal.
But I'll get some quotes done for that.
Looking for a decision either way on the invoice, so the ADF can get a final answer.
Is there a motion on the floor on that, or are we looking for?
For a motion.
What?
What to do with this?
Take the bill?
Yeah, it's this invoice, what?
I would say just, I agree with Marty that they're responsible for it.
I also said though that they've been a good tenant. But if this is all the problem, then yes, I think that's it. But we're hearing from Gary that there's other issues, and this is the easy one that they found, therefore, I guess I would have more problem not paying it, other than more problem with Northwest sending a bill for $250 to change a filter, as far as actually doing something.
Maybe we can let it sit for a month.
I was saying maybe we should postpone them. Any results of quotes we get.
Okay, there's,
I'll make that motion. We
table it to the next meeting.
So we get quotes for the new year.
Is there a second to that one?
Second.
Mike seconds. Anybody need clarification?
So you postpone it till next meeting.
I would say, yeah.
The table has other implications that you don't want to apply. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, no. Motion carried. Apologies to the people from the animal shelter. We'll move to that now. And the first item is just any update on the project to add space for cats. I guess everybody should have in front of you a single statement of qualifications from PRA, which is Plunkett Architects LLP, to design the proposed addition. Appears to be relatively complete. Company shows some evidence of previous projects of a similar type that it's done and appear to have been done very well. And it's my understanding that the Animal Shelter Board has preferred this to this committee to accept, hopefully, so that design can begin. Design will be necessary before we can get solid estimates of costs. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Where's the amount on that?
So it was somewhere in the middle. It's $15,000, Marty, or recall?
It's 15,800, 800 something like
Page 10,
that.
page 10, I see.
Page 10.
I was looking at their certificate.
See.
Would anyone care to make a motion to accept this proposal, or are there questions
Well,
about
I'm
it?
kind of looking here, this has to do with insurance here, liability.
This one's the next page, that's what I was looking at too.
Okay, there it is, yeah.
Did the committee get to meet with a representative here?
No, this was put out as an RFQ.
Yeah.
And we drew back, and this is the one we selected.
Oh, okay.
It has not been accepted yet, because it's gotta go through. That said, we need approval from this committee to continue forward.
I'll make a motion that we proceed with the.
Okay, Randy's made a motion. Is there a second? Second to that motion?
I'll second it so we can get going on it.
Mike has seconded. Does anybody need clarification on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, no. Motion carried. Anything else you folks want to report today or need from us?
I don't think so, we're good.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Moving on down the line, unless I jumped over something again, which is very possible, I'm at item 3D, ADF plant. Is that where everybody else is at?
You have a 3.
Yep, D2, and I guess we heard from Gary that he's in discussions on getting that estimate, so didn't have it with him today. Moving on then to the Doughty Road building. Item E, I mentioned that we're still trying to track down some rain handlers, but they seem to be harder to get a hold of than they were some time back.
The only source that I found is in London.
London, okay, higher shipping.
Well, it doesn't, no, that's what they said. They're not cheap, but shipping costs would be really expensive.
Okay. Are you aware of any comparable product that
Well,
performs the same
I
service?
found another 50 feet in my garage.
Oh,
Brand new, still in the box, never opened, whatever, so
okay.
that's gotta put us up around 100 odd feet.
Sure.
And I may have some used pieces that we can get something for, but anyway, yeah, what's that?
200 feet we were
Only
hoping.
about 200 feet. But, yeah, Home Depot was supposed to carry them. I called Home Depot's out in California, and I tried anywhere east of the Mississippi. It's like, nope, it's not available in this area, whatever. California's the only place that I found where they said Home Depot has it. But I talked to about 3 different Home Depot people there, and they don't have anything in stock. They don't have any idea if they're ever gonna get anything in stock. Even Amazon will tell you it's not available, they don't know when. I tracked it down, London now, London, England, London, Canada. London, England has it manufactured, must have bought
I see a market all of a sudden then. Maybe if you get back in touch with the company in London
Is that
and
another company?
let them know, yeah, we have space here, they can manufacture it stateside.
I'll give you the phone number.
Alright, do that.
Call it.
Worth a try, right?
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, it is a product that fit in northern Wisconsin really well.
It's a product line that would be allied with what Centerland is, maybe they should get on it.
Maybe that's what, there should be somebody around. Like I said, I haven't given up, but they're the only place that I found it so far. So, and then I found 50 more feet in my garage, and I thought, I'll just sell it, so, without charging for it.
You're talking about the one,
The little louvered ones.
yeah, and then they shoot the water over.
They actually
You know, I
break it
saw
up into
those, I
pieces.
don't know what magazine I was looking at, I saw those advertised somewhere, and
They work really well. Like I said, I put them on the bed and breakfast, put on the White House down across the park, my garage is down there. There's no indication of erosion at the bottom, like if you just let it come off the roof, you don't have to worry about big volumes of it, coming off a spout on the end, you don't have to worry about ice holding them up and freezing. I'm happy with it, so.
We'll stay after that. Moving then to the Enterprise Center, anything on the Enterprise Center? Anyone? If not, Fritz Avenue plant. I think Gary, responded to Marty's question earlier about the status of the mold remediation there.
Maybe this
Did you
is.
ever, remember you said there's a water problem by the front door there, the building right next door, Marty? And that been corrected or anything like that?
I've got a plan for it. It's not on the agenda, but I don't know if we're talking about business or anything like that. There's no action.
We should put it
But-
on.
Yeah, I had talked with, who was the highway department guy before?
Scott
Was it before?
Scott Amsh.
Okay. I talked with him and he had come out and said, because if you look at that parking lot, it was really, really bad shape. It's rough, it's cracked, it's busted, I mean, there's pieces missing, it's really rough. Scott had said, we'll put together some numbers on just doing it right, the majority of it, so that you start to slope, there's either 2 or 3 drains in there, and none of those, they don't seem to catch the water well, water never gets to it because of the breaks and the cracks and chunks of it, whatever. So I don't know whether Scott brought the numbers to somebody. He didn't give them to me. That was when we were looking at ADF, so that was last summer or maybe before then.
I have never seen those numbers.
But because Alan Bradley Rockwell is out there or over there, and now they're renting the building across where a 5R used to be, they have to run a forklift going that way and coming out around and going to the north end of the building, and then it's just all rough there. They wind up driving way out around or whatever, and even then, it's hard for them. I know it is. They go really slow. I'm just thinking that we might want to think about doing something with that. Whether we put it on the agenda, whether we have the current highway commissioner do put together a bid or an estimate on it. We don't have to, if they do it, because it's a city county building, whatever, we don't need a bid from 3 contractors, no matter what it is. Because they're another government entity. But that would be one. And then what Mike was just talking about, summertime is not really a problem. But what I've got is a proposal to put a new roof over the top of that and then create a wall down the side of the front door where they go into for Marshfield FHC goes in with their AODA problem or issues. And all winter long, we had water freezing up out here and then running in. And I think we've got a solution to that. But the numbers, I'm gonna say less than $10,000. So if it doesn't come here for a solution, then I shouldn't say it, but I'll probably wind up fixing it because.
Are you able to follow up on getting that number?
Oh, yeah.
Or do we need somebody from the county to pursue that?
Well, if somebody else wants to do it, that's fine. But I've got
You have to
numbers
do it
from.
because you understand
Yeah.
the issue.
I've got some numbers, and we changed, the original proposal was to dig a footing and put a cement block wall, that decorative cement block, maybe wood or something in the middle. But that's a really expensive proposal, and I think we can do it with treated wood, sealed, and whatever, so. I'll get something before we have to do it.
Are you aware of any change in status of Hooper Corporation with their space in that facility?
No, except the last time I talked with their rep, they said as soon as somebody moves out of the other one out there.
And it is empty
they would-
and available.
Right, I know, I see they're moved now, I saw Steve in fact. But they would be interested, we need a number, he said, I need a number to take back for what it's gonna cost to rent. So if this committee wants to put together, again, this is just new business, but if a committee wants to put together a number of what they want that place to rent for, I would,
And that's actually a city owned.
that's the city building out there, but then to turn around and say what the Hoover building would rent for, but I gotta give that to FHC
Okay.
as far as, what they're looking for, because they're interested in moving in there. So, but that would be after Hoover got out. So, the city can come up with a number, and I guess that starts the process.
Sure. Thanks for the update on that. Guess we did the Enterprise Center. We've been, trying to get, David Roth back to do some painting that he had started on last year. He sort of got a really good start and then somebody else tracked him down, and he's been on some other jobs. I know he's got a lot going on, but there are some things that didn't get completed there that would be good. The worst thing is probably the pediment above the front door, which is ephes material, the same as the library. And if you recall there, we had a major problem a number of years ago because it hadn't been repainted frequently enough, that the paint had gotten so thin on the exterior, the water was able to soak into the foam board backing and essentially cause it to fail in places. And I think that pediment is pretty much in that same condition where it's either going to have to be painted very soon or it's going to fail and need to be replaced with something else.
Is the Enterprise Center you're talking about?
Yeah, just above the front
South
door.
entrance? The south entrance?
Yeah. So if anybody's got any ideas there, Dave didn't start on that particular part of the building. He was working on repainting the air handling equipment on the north side and some other things, which he did very well what he did. But he didn't start on that pediment. If anybody knows a painter that could get to that relatively quickly, that would be good.
Is the moisture behind the ephes, if that's the word?
It tends to suck into it if
So you're sure,
paint starts to
you
fill.
think it's coming in from the outside as opposed to moisture from the inside of the building, pushing out?
I believe it's a problem from the outside, yeah.
What does that do to the breathability of that foam?
I think it can breathe okay. It should be able to breathe from the back. Cause it was coated initially when it was put up and doing fine, but it's just been too long. I don't know that it's ever been recoated in roughly 26 years it's been.
Coated by paint. Okay, I know Dutch Boy makes a paint for masonry and bricks and whatever, but that actually seals it so that the moisture can't get in. By the same token, that it can't get out. That's what I'm asking if there's a problem coming from the inside, but if there isn't, then you're gonna want a specific paint. And if this other lasts 26 years, it is.
And the guy that would probably know, John Smatlock did the painting eventually on the library, I believe, and he knew the product that he needed to have that would work there, and it did. So I can try to contact him.
Typically, they're supposed to have a moisture barrier on the inside, so it won't,
Well, there should be.
but is there? I don't know.
That would typically be like a
Is he
plastic.
still in
barrier.
business?
What's that?
Yeah, but he's not doing.
Oh, no, he's not doing
painting
it.
or anything. He's
I think he would
driving.
just know what product we
I think
need.
he drives for the VMA or
I wish I'd have thought of this question for him when he was at the city council meeting the other night, might have thrown him off. Okay. Any other items on the Fritz Avenue plan? If not, anything on the Gates Avenue plan? Tony, has the, county property committee done any investigating of other options for the sheriff's storage or any movement there?
There hasn't been any movement, I mean, a lot of the discussions they had with, actually, and then of course what we got the other night. Outside of that, basically lacking a place to go.
Or, I'm told, and maybe this is more rumor than fact, but I'm told that Pete Fallsgraff's, storage west of Ladysmith might be available where he used to keep Fallsgraff buses.
What building is that?
Pete Fallsgraff's personal property, his house and the adjacent storage buildings on the west side of Ladysmith.
How far out is that?
It's only about 2 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe not.
Right across the old Bush field. You know, over their field,
What?
right across the old Bush airfield,
Okay.
where the electrical,
There's several large buildings out there that he kept buses in. And,
Is he renting it out?
On the north side of the highway?
south side, it's across from that bus storage garage.
Okay.
right, yellow.
Little house right by the road. What's the, I know that it comes up often enough, the sheriff's department with storage room out on Gates Avenue, whatever. What are we figuring that should rent for, that space? We have somebody, I know we've had businesses looking at it, but what should that rent for?
We kinda came up with $3 a square foot.
That's what the latest was, cause we passed $3 for all our leases.
So, okay, how many square feet is there?
60,000 total.
60?
60, I think the whole building.
Yeah, it's about 22.5 that they occupy.
So we're probably looking at potential for about 60-some thousand a year in rent off of that end facility. Okay, what are they asking for the 5R building over at Glen Flora? 3-something?
$499.
490 some,
Okay.
all 500,000 raise.
My question is, would it make sense? I mean, you can't build that building for 500,000. I'm guessing based on what we saw out in the industrial park, it's gotta be at least a $2 million building. And if you could get it for 500,000, would we be ahead of the game to basically designate that as a facility over there, buy it? Maybe there's enough space for who knows what else that the county would need.
Well, we discussed that, but the thing about it is with that building, the sheriff don't want his evidence that far away, for one thing. He wants it secured.
Well, it could be secured.
The other thing that came up was that the building is being used. Somebody's leasing that.
There are like 12 people working in it.
I don't know, but that's what
And private, I mean, that's, well, it's private sector. The building's owned by,
Federal
Federal
savings.
savings.
They're recyclers, yeah.
And they're renting it out, so I mean, it's generating the income, which if you buy that building for the purpose of the sheriff department, now you gotta find a place for this, for the occupant.
I wasn't aware there was an occupant in there, that's why I was asking.
There's an
I'm trying to
occupant.
think of something that's big enough that they can keep all of their stuff in, the county could keep their dump trucks or whatever in the winter time or not, you know. Put some of their winter stuff in there in the summertime, and some stuff in there in the winter time, just because for $500,000, picking up a $2+ million building, long term, I think the long term rent on it would cover.
Well, you know,
Especially if we can get the 60-some thousand in one out here.
we have, building out in the industrial park, basically two of them are gonna go up for sale. At Tally Road and Chesnut Building. And Tally Road building is heated. That's 20,000 square feet.
Is the Dowdy Road when you're talking about, is that the blue building?
501 Dowdy Road.
Is that the one that,
Leaf
okay,
is in that.
alright. Is Leaf looking at buying it?
I think so.
Okay.
No, they, it's not a lease termination.
The one at 1402 Jez Road, the one right north of it is being vacated. So it's potentially available.
I know the sheriff's supposed to have something very far away for whatever reason.
Mr. Mayor, do you know if the space that Dunn Paper was looking for, did they need heated space or was cold storage adequate?
I think cold storage would be adequate.
If they're not aware, I think it's probably fine to tell them, right, the UPI space is becoming available?
Yeah.
Time frame?
End of this month, so
What's that?
I think that was what their letter said.
The northernmost of those two buildings on Dowdy Road. Well, that's on Jez Road.
That's what Kent had, was in,
The one right north of Kent.
just north,
Yeah.
north empty one, the pipeline building.
Right.
Yes,
Pipeline is apparently
okay, they're done.
done with what they were using it for.
That's one with no power right there.
Doesn't have any heat or any
Or heat, yeah.
It's got electrical lighting and
Okay.
good docks and
Sure.
overhead doors on both ends.
I wonder though, yeah, without having water, sprinklers are an issue then.
Right.
Cause you've got some highly combustible.
Dry sprinklers are always an option, but I have no idea how they stack up, cost of installation wise.
If they've got, are they looking at paper? Done.
Yeah.
Dry, everything they want, dry sprinklers, water sprinklers, and water system.
I think factory mutual is shying away from dry sprinkler systems.
Okay, shying away from.
Yep, after that big fire out in New Jersey.
And so if you had wet ones, then you need to be heated.
Because Rosanna, they would say, never mind.
We took care of the appraisals, at the last meeting. I'm gonna pass on the past project summary. Moving on to correspondence at L. I wanted to ask Tony, if you could put on a county property committee agenda for me to appear and talk about interest the city or Ladysmith Development Corporation might have in either assisting with, marketing and use of that property or potentially even in buying it or trading for it.
I'll put it on there.
Contract.
Pardon?
We have a contract you need to look into.
What's that?
There's a contract.
Yeah, there's a contract with XM Energy. No?
EDA,
Yeah,
Okay.
look into that.
Yeah,
I think Ashley.
that seems like that was put in about 10, 12 years ago. We went down to Chicago and got that grant, remember? With Andy. I don't know exactly how long ago it was.
And the city of Ladysmith is just doing an EDA contract out in the industrial area again. And, they're pretty much telling us, you know, the verbiage in that contract says, if we sell that
EDA funding for it.
in anything less than 20 years, we have to repay all or a portion of the grant funding, which is what I've been bringing up about some of these properties from time to time.
Okay.
No, it wasn't that, it was something with a wood yard.
Well, you had to restrict that for wood use only,
Yeah.
for a certain number of
If it
years.
was sold, it had to be sold to somebody that did.
Wood.
Right.
Yeah, and that,
Okay,
understand
I
that.
think that's what it was.
That was part of the agreement with the railroad, I think, originally when they put in that switch.
Sure.
That was about $800,000
Yeah.
cost.
You're right.
And, now, Tony, right off, and exactly where the change occurs, where Watco, which bought the line back to the east toward Rhinelander, from the CN where that change occurs. I believe that the rail yard at Tony is still within CN's jurisdiction, and that it's somewhere east of that, but I don't know how far.
Yeah, I don't know either.
They say it was about a mile east of, I remember Andy talking about it, cause he used to be part of that committee.
Well, that'd be about Range Line Road then.
But I mean, they wanted Canadian National wanted to keep at least a mile east of the loading thing, just in case they had full train back there. I know that otherwise they would look at another railroad, but they wanted to keep at least a mile east.
I know they parked a lot of empty cars there.
Yeah, well, but I mean, that was one of the stipulations, cause there was 3 other railroads looking at the other part of
There
it.
used to be some wheel stops even out there.
Or if it's a mile, it'd be about Range Line Road.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. One other thing I wanted to bring up was a couple of meetings back talked about past operating agreements. You know, this committee's been in place for quite some time, and initially we started out only dealing with the Fritz Avenue property. It was the only thing the city and county had together. But as time went on, when we were using mining money, we built a few buildings, renovated others, and now we're overseeing 9 or 10 different properties. And that original agreement's out there, and there are various other documents, city and county resolutions that seem to modify the original. And, I was 10 years younger and still going into work at 5:45 in the morning. Every day I'd probably outright offer to draft a new agreement that is up to date and includes everything that's gone before. Still might consider doing that, but I think it needs to happen. And one thought that I've had too, part of the reason that I brought all this stuff along was that these are all files that relate to these various properties. And even though I brought it along, I couldn't find what I was looking for. But I think it would work a little bit smoother for whoever the chairman is if the meetings were held in the chairman's clubhouse, so to speak. So if these meetings were at City Hall.
And Sherry could do the minutes?
Yeah, and Sherry would do the minutes.
Here.
And I think that would just be a little bit smoother transaction wise. And when the county has the chair, the county does the minutes, the county provides this room for the meetings. Just think it would be a little easier to operate that way, and think about that, and I'll give some thought to trying to put together a new master agreement, because even if we discuss the possibility of some exchange of properties at some point, or one entity buying out the other for whatever reason, there are still at least, some of these are, at least for the foreseeable future, forever situations with the library, the animal shelter, the visitor center. A couple of these properties probably are unlikely to be sold for one reason or another. So I do think that we need to continue to work together and on as good a basis as we can. And over the past 30 years, since the Flambeau mine closed, I've been running around the state talking about the Ladysmith Rusk County experience with mining. And one of the things I've told people across the entire northern tier of counties in the state is one of the reasons that things went well here was because we were able to work together very well. We worked together between the city and the county, and the town of Grant came up with a joint agreement. And I think at the time we did that, because we were meeting weekly, we came to understand each other better. And Marty would tell you, because he was a member of the committee that negotiated with Flambeau Mining, is Wisconsin statutes don't set us up in the same way. Some of the rules that govern county operations actually create some friction with some of the municipalities in the way they are set up. So there's that built-in friction, but we learned about some of those things, and we learned how town governments operate a bit differently, and I think that was a good thing. But where it really became obvious and was when we went to the Mining Impact Board seeking money to finance these various projects. We came in there together, essentially. Some of you may recall this. We literally chartered buses, took a chartered bus full of people from Ladysmith and Rusk County down to the meeting. There was a big support group sitting in the audience, and we were all on the same page. Everybody agreed on what we were looking for, what we wanted to do. But also at the table, the people from the towns of Lincoln and Nashville over in Forest County came into those same meetings seeking money with the potential Crandon mine under consideration, and it pretty much got laughed out of the place because the town of Lincoln would come in and propose a project or something they wanted to do, and the people from Nashville, right next door, the next town governments, two town governments, would sit there and poke holes in their neighbors' projects, and they never got approved. They never got approved. They would just come and essentially fight with each other in public. And with the potential for mining here again in coming years, I think we want to be on the same page and working together so we don't end up in that same boat. It wasn't a good show. We need to keep that in mind. We brought home 96.2% of the money that was available. And again, we need to be sure that we're in a good posture to do that again when the opportunity arises. With that, this isn't actually on the agenda, so there's no action needed, but I did get a preliminary drawing from Short Elliott Hendrickson, and this is of the two buildings that we own jointly along Jez Road, the ones we talked about earlier, the one that is rented by OPE and the one that has been rented by UPI. And as you can see in the drawing, and this is what I wanted to portray, was that we put those two buildings up the way we did so that in the future we could at least give consideration to putting a centerpiece in there and create a building that would be in excess of 60,000 square feet. Because, as we've all seen even recently, with the center line coming here, and with Henry Repeating Arms coming here, that buildings in that size range tend to attract more attention than the smaller ones do. And sure, we probably want to attract potential occupants in all size ranges, but something this size can really be something that gets noticed. And again, if we get to a place in time before too long where there are more mining dollars available, putting that centerpiece in might be something within our grasp, something that we can accomplish. And so if anybody has any thoughts on these sketches, let me know so we can try to get them finalized. I guess the one thing that occurred to me was it looks a little bit sterile because the two existing buildings, all they have on the face are loading docks, and so that's pretty much what they show on the center one. But we probably want to need a point of entry somewhere on the front, that at least like Walmart does, where you make it obvious where you come into the building and dress it up a little bit at that part of it. But other than that, I think it portrays what's intended. So if you have comments now or think of them later, get a hold of me and we'll try to get that exercise wound up. Does anyone have anything else that I missed or care to bring up?
So this building that you're looking at here, that's each end is 20,000.
Yes, and the centerpiece could be 20,000 or larger. And, just to put what Marty and what Mike's told us before about the building over in Glen Flora in perspective, the cost projection we got for this middle section, now you'll know why it would take mining money to do it, $3.7 million to put that middle piece in. The building over in Glen Flora is for sale for $500,000 for that same size. And, it's a good buy if you haven't used it.
Well, I don't know who's in there, but I think that the person that's operating in that building.
Doesn't buy it? Yeah.
You can rent it.
The rent is cheap.
Oh, this is the one that, this is 501 Doughty Road, and OPE is in there. And this is 1402 Juz Road. This one's on a corner. It has road frontage on Doughty Road, which is why I got that address. This one only has frontage on Juz Road. I also left just some reading material here for you. Only 4 pages talking about why we need more public investment in home repairs. This gets into the whole issue of other ways to meet housing needs on the local level, primarily by fixing up older existing dwellings. But it's all part of the bigger picture, and it's a good read. Encourage you to do that. If there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, I was assuming that we've just been meeting the 4th Thursday of every month, if that works, just to continue that. 4th Thursday of every month, 1 p.m. here.
I want that motion to adjourn, we'll make that motion.
Mike's made a motion to adjourn at 2:24, is there a second? Tony seconded, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, no. Motion carried, thank you all for your time.
Yeah. Later Schuster did that.
Yep.
Passed away.
Oh. Yeah, I hadn't seen him in forever. I did run into Sheldon Johnson. I didn't see him all.